And welcome to a rather wounded edition of Ben's Junk. Wounded in that today's item only exists because its predecessor lost its life to something as small as an Oddity archive episode. So, long story time here, get comfy. In case you missed it, during the making of the Telecine episode, this past year's Halloween special, my regular standard 8mm projector, which I had had since middle school, had a gear slip causing the machine's two chain belts to get tied up with the machine's one rubber belt, snapping the rubber belt. And of course, it all happened very quickly. Now, this wouldn't have been such a big deal except for the fact that pretty much that whole projector was machined as opposed to screwed together, effectively killing my projector over something as minor and usually fixable as a rubber belt. So while still working on that episode, I ordered this, and this is a Sankyo Dualux Dual8 projector, model 2000H, and I believe it dates to sometime in the 1970 to 73 range. And this, as the name implies, is capable of regular and Super 8mm film. This model does not have sound capabilities, which is just as well, because I kind of wanted something that would save some of the wear and tear on my sound Super 8 projector. But what led me to this particular model were four demands. One, it needed to be easily user serviceable, so easily dismantled so I can handle any stuck film or broken belts or what have you. Two, it needed to run on a bulb that is still manufactured, so I'm not spending $30, $40, $50 plus on new old stock bulbs. Three, it needed to have variable speed so I can fine tune it to play as nice as possible with my camcorders. And four, it needed to be able to handle regular and Super 8 film. So after doing some snooping around online, this model was the only one that met my criteria that didn't cost several $100s on the secondhand market. In fact, I wasn't too thrilled about dropping $80 on this, which is far and away the most I've ever spent on a projector. But having said all that, I do still have a couple of complaints about this unit. One, maybe it's just me, but the speed seems to waver a bit, even more so than my past projectors. And two, this thing has the absolute worst auto-threading I've ever seen. So you'd think the film comes up where my finger is, and you'd think it would land right in the take-up reel, but it still seems to miss about half the time. So I wind up starting to thread, stopping the machine, fix the film onto the take-up reel by hand, and then start up again. But what you gonna do? So let's take a cut, and we'll take a closer look at the projector itself. Unfortunately, this is one of those times that I'm going to have to do things guerrilla style, so apologies for that. But getting down to business here. The thing I like most about this projector is how mostly simple it is. Case in point, three cases in point at least here. You've got a simple switch between Super 8 and regular 8. You've got the framer, and you can just move it up and down as much as you want so nobody's head is getting cut off or anything like that. Basic focus knob. And about as close to quirky as it gets is this 2-in-1 knob here. The outer part of which, if you set it back, it's a still image, which I never use, normal playback, and it says slow motion, but it's actually the vary speed, and you adjust that speed using the inner part of the knob. And then if we move to the back here, this seems a little quirky at first, but it makes sense when you think about it. So you've got what appears to be the usual forward or reverse, and that is true, but if you only set it to just forward or reverse, it's akin to basically fast forward or rewind. If you actually want the light on and to see the film, assuming there's film in there, you have to take it all the way. And then this whole face plate here is held on with one screw, which I've undone ahead of time to hopefully make this a little less awkward. And underneath, we've got the lamp, which it's really hard to get in there. But just trust me, it is partially screwed on, so you do have to do a little work to put a new lamp in. And aside from that, if we go down here, we've got at least part of the film path. So I can press this back and pop this whole black chunk out. And then I also have to do take some of this stuff out. But it does clear things up to the point that if some film gets seized up in here, I can actually just take the film out and not have to worry about any further damage, if any damage occurred at all. So that's really nice. And let me just give a little story on that since I'm thinking about it. So during the Telecine episode, if you've seen that, you know that I lost a few inches of my silent Three Stooges reel. And I felt terrible about it. I'd had that reel forever. And so I actually went on Fleabay and ordered another one, thinking it was going to be complete and in decent shape, as per what the seller says. And I get it, and it's a totally abused ex-library copy, complete with the card with the date stamps on it. The most recent date stamp was 1973 or 4. And it was missing the first third of the reel, but I wound up keeping it because it seemed like a good sacrificial reel. And so I used that to test this thing with when I first got it. And sure enough, I had to do some work with the film path. Halfway through that reel, somewhere down the line, back in the 60s or 70s, somebody had checked out that reel and the film broke somehow. And instead of splicing it, they just took a piece of Scotch tape and folded it lengthwise and just stuck it on the film. And of course, I didn't know about it until it was playing. But yeah, that was kind of an interesting little trial by fire there. Now, as just a quick little final point here, I'm not actually going to take this off, but we've got 2 holes here with screws in them. I can pop this entire rear off, and I checked around, I looked around. I can actually get to the belt if I need to replace it, and it appears to be fairly user serviceable, so just take my word for it. I just don't want this to take any longer. Now, let's go back to the front. Admittedly, I haven't tested this thing yet in tandem with the dreaded black box, which, of course, is pretty much the only way I can more or less decently share film footage with you, which isn't saying much. But, yeah, the demo segment today could be very, very interesting. But, barring anything catastrophic, that is all the talking I intend to do for today. And I will see you again soon.